Hey guys, what's up? We're going to be talking about the Season 7 changes and what's that done to the Winter Skirmish semi-finals that are currently on, and how this is going to impact us in our solo games, duo games, and squad games just for the regular Joes. So first up, we have to mention that this is on patch 7.01, not the original Season 7 patch it was released on. So this means the Infinity Blade is included if you haven't watched the tournaments, and I thought this would be the best place to start to just mention how OP this thing is. If any of you guys have watched the actual tournament, you would have noticed that a player got 11 kills with it, which is just absolutely insane to think that the max kills you could get before was 7 for 3 points. Then you get 1 point on top of that for each one. This has basically meant that everyone tries to land polar peaks now because it's guaranteed points along with guaranteed placing. It's basically the easiest way to win a tournament or get points. I'm pretty sure that you could pick a player that is semi-competent in just a solo match and give them that sword in the pro skirmish and they would win. Well, not win, they would at least place and get points. It's really not that hard. It gives you the ability to build if you haven't used it as well. So you can camp like a pro player, but then you can destroy everyone's builds and hit them for ridiculous damage. It also has the ability to heal you for full shield and full health, which is actually a pool of 200 in each, so it's not actually the 100 like it's normally used as. So you would notice that it takes a lot longer to hit someone for someone that hasn't really used it. It's also pretty crazy the amount of distance you can jump. It instantly destroys a wall. It has two different attacks. One's just a normal slash attack, which will destroy a wall or a couple walls just next to it. The other one is a giant leap that will destroy anything in its path and has an AoE damage of 25. So I think this is just broken. I think every pro player that's reacted thinks it's stupid and broken. So everyone's in consensus this thing will be gone within, I say, 2 weeks, because it always takes them a little long to figure things out. I'm not saying Epic Games is a little slow, but let's just say it takes a little time to figure out. Also, I don't understand how they thought this would be great in the pro scene. I could understand at least keeping it in the solo, duo, or squad for just normal players, but it just switches it up and ruins this thing for the every pro player. Just full stop. You spend so many hours committed to playing Fortnite. You can play 12 hours a day locked in your basement just grinding and grinding to be the best player. And you might be the best player, but there was one player who was eliminated twice by that sword. So I think that you come into the day of the tournament and then all of a sudden there's this brand new sword which there's no counterplay to, and it just takes all your mats and then you just get whacked by it twice. You think, well, there's nothing much I can really do. Thanks for just ruining the tournament. It's not really the best player wins. Also, the thing that was different about this tournament is it's qualified only through online tournaments and practice. So, unlike other tournaments where it would be more about notoriety, especially at the beginning of the pro scene, it's not like that anymore. You have to qualify. So, it was the best of the best from everything. There was even an Xbox player in there. I think his name was Wiggly. It's super cool to see them. I don't play Xbox, but I think it's always good to see more people in there. And one day, look, we might have a mobile player, said no one ever. I'm sorry, I just had to laugh at that because, let's be honest, there is no mobile player ever becoming a pro. And if someone does it, look, I'll be the first to say I was wrong, but Jesus, that person needs some sunlight, that's all. So, if we look back on the planes, I made a video on the top 3 most overpowered things coming into Season 7. This was before 7.01, so it didn't include the Infinity Sword. I'll chuck that down in the description. If you saw any of the pro scene, it was about 10 planes in the air, at least, and that was in probably the 4th circle. So if you're thinking about it, I was 100% right. I mentioned that this is going to be absolutely camped, especially at last circles, just because it takes too much ammo to shoot them down. People are just going to destroy build battles, I said, especially in pros. Build battles used to go miles high, and because they play so many walls, it's really hard to shoot down. But players just drive straight through with the planes, which makes it super crazy and OP at the moment. So they need to kind of be nerfed. I think people say there was too much health. They did include 25 blow up damage, but I don't think that's enough. I think either move it to 50, or alternatively, I liked my idea of just reducing the number of spawns. I think if I'm correct, there were 25 in total. They spawn nearly in every corner of the map. There's tons of hangars, so there's plenty of opportunities to go around and find one. I just think there's too many. If there was less, even if they kept it the same and just took half of them out, I think it would be good just because it just requires too much ammo, which is the big reason for people not shooting them down. If you watched, you would have seen Ninja try to actually shoot down a plane and then instantly got sniped in the head, which is a big problem. People in Pro Scene are just so quick with that. You peek for 1 second, especially since you're going to have to look upwards, it's a lot harder. You have to edit a roof generally, or you're just going to be peeking completely. But there's not much you can do about that. You're going to get punished by pros every day of the week. That's just how it is. They're the best players and they know what to do. So people were complaining about the turrets that were added in. I think that was a bit of an overreaction. It's just would be so good to play in a lobby like that because there's so many people that spam you with turrets. Turrets are really hard to play against in probably a one-on-one scenario if you don't have a sniper or explosives. Just because they're easy counters, all you have to do is just bang, hit them. You can hit them a bit with your AR, but a lot of the time it's the angle that they're pointing at. It's nearly impossible to hit. There was pretty much not a single good use for the turret at all the entire tournament. Only once did I see that a pro player actually shot planes down with it. I think that was actually probably the best reason why I think turrets should be kept in the game. I was not of that opinion before, but just not using ammo, it can hit like a truck and it can take those planes out the sky. Look, I'm all for that because I prefer just watching the best player skill based. I hate the fact that you get points in Fortnite just for coming top 10 and camping a plane the entire game. It just seems stupid to me because high ground is just so unbelievably important in pros. And I think for people playing in Season 7 that watch this, if you play solo, you would have noticed obviously that players have got so much better since the last couple of seasons. But the ability to camp in 1 by 1s has been just moved to another level, especially building out so they have only one high 1 by 1s with pyramids on top. So people clearly watch this and they go, that's a great idea, so we will just copy that. And you would have seen a ton of it this season. It might be because it's early and people are just camping for wins. I prefer high kill games, going and pushing. It makes it harder when people are camping because obviously they have the advantage of knowing where you're pushing from. But I understand how they've made it at the moment. Also, there's a really high turnover in players at the moment. So you would have noticed that probably Myth and Ninja were the two best at the start of Fortnite. They really aren't the best, and they're nowhere near the best anymore. I mean, they're still absolutely great players. They're top level talents, but you've got to be top 0.0001% to be in the pro scene at the moment. And it just requires so much grinding, and they've got to focus on their YouTube, their Twitch. That's their real income, and it's a consistent income, and it could be their future, while other players really don't have that opportunity and need to focus on being the best. It's a problem though because you really want to root for your team or your player. Everyone watched Myth was like, yeah, Myth's the best. Everyone who watched Ninja was like, Ninja's the best, and it was kind of you were really invested in seeing where each player was ranked. And so this obviously has had an impact now because players that were there before, Tifu's probably he came up later in the scene, but he's probably been the most consistent. I really like Liquid Poach, but recently he hasn't been where he used to be. He was obviously the best player before, where he's not at that level anymore. So I think the problem here is it's just a new pro scene. If you look at League of Legends, which was really their first major successful esport, it just brought in so much money. It was really well produced. It was live streamed on Twitch. The worlds was huge. There was just a high number of viewership. And I think that because Fortnite came out pretty early, I think it was within a year at least, maybe even before a year of the actual game being released, that people were not really at the skill ceiling they are now. And it's really hard trying to get invested into the pro scene at the moment because you don't know who to root for. There's still like Nick Merckx, Ghost Aid, and Ninja Myth. Ghost Aiden's probably the best currently out of all of them. But it's really hard because you can get attached to a player. So let's say Nick Merckx was my favourite player. Now it's Ghost Aiden. And let's say someone else becomes better than him. It's really hard having just such high turnover with pro players at the moment. Because I want to be invested in my team. I don't want to change my favourite player every 3 months. I don't want to bandwagon. I would just want to support my one player and hope he does the best. Even if he's consistently there, he doesn't win. At least I know that's my player and I'm invested in him winning. If you look at Overwatch, which was probably the fastest pro scene, I think they had some of the same problems just with turnover of high skilled players. It really died the pro scene pretty quick. You just need to have those players that have the great personalities that stand out that you can really go, yeah, I want to support you. But it ruins the game when these no names, well, not no names, I mean, all respect to them. They work so hard to be where they are, but it's really, I don't want them taking spots of people I already know. So it kind of goes even and handed, if you know what I mean. The same thing is with the rankings during the games, you can't really tell where each player is ranked at the moment. You have to wait to the end of the game and you can see. There was one game where Funk Bomb in Heat 2, Match 3 only got 2 points. And the shoutcasters were like, well, he did really well. He moved up 53 positions. I want that number next to the name. So if you've noticed, there's a number between 1 and 100 next to every player's name. I want that number to be where they are currently ranked in the ladder right now. Look, I can understand for the last couple of games you might not want to do that because it ruins, but it's hard to be invested. You're like, wow, he gets a point, but I don't know how much a point is worth at this point in time. Plus, there's 100 players. So I'm not a mathematician. I'm not counting cards. You can't bet money on where each player will be ranked at the end of the game while watching it. I think it would be really helpful just to see players' numbers go up and down based on how they play. So I can look at maybe 1 and 2 competing against each other. And let's say number 1 dies and then he goes down to 2. And you see the player that recently had number 2, his number changes to number 1. You can go, well, he only gained a point. That's what the shoutcasters will say. But you can see, well, he really overtook first position, which is a huge amount. That's at least $70,000 now compared to, I think it's about 50-something thousand. So it's really important just for viewers' perspective. I think for shoutcasters' perspective, it just helps them. And there's so many things you have to focus on while watching this at the moment that it's very important that you keep your mind on it. And I just think there's so much going on. It's such an intense game with graphics, gameplay, that you really just need as much help as you can. And they've come a long way. I think the only problem they've been having is the camera work at the moment. Because if you actually watch the camera, sometimes they just show people farming mats while there's fighting going on. And you're just like, why would I want to watch this? You've got 100 players. Surely you can find me something more entertaining than farming mats at the moment. Just one last thing on the Infinity Blade. This is for people that currently play solo and not for pros. If you're landing polar at the polar place, it's a great place to land. You can just spam land. It doesn't matter about your KD. If you get that sword, you're guaranteed to win. That's pretty much how it is in solo. Like, it's almost impossible to lose with that thing. And it's really hard to watch, I think, the pro scene at the moment with that sword. Because it just hurts seeing these players. I don't know. I mean, they could be the best, but it's not like they proved they were the best. His name's Psalms. He had all the kills. He came out of nowhere. I don't know who he is, but apparently he's now like one of the number 1 ranked players according to this tournament because he just picked up the sword and had a good game with it. It destroys builds, which is the most OP thing for pros. I think that's why planes are so good. It's not the shooting ability. Anything that can destroy builds is just OP. And they just need to remove this. Just I've said enough on it. I recommend landing there. It's just fun. But too many pros land there. People are willing just to sacrifice their lives to land there. They'll just land on the sword and hope they get it. if they get it, they basically win the tournament. They just need to do it 1 out of the 5 games, and they basically qualify for the grand final. So it's worth it, I think, in the long term. But it really doesn't prove who the best player is. And that destroying materials brings me on to another note, the Deagle. So the Deagle update basically happened after the grand final as well. And I think what we've learned so far is that the Deagle is just crazy. If you're playing solos right now, I would take that game into solos every game you get the opportunity. Its best use is phasing in pro play, so that's high level scrims. If you're phasing through walls, you can just quickly shotgun SMG, depending on what combo you like to run or where they're placed. It just instantly knocks down all wood, building brick and building metal. Once brick and metal fully built, you have to two-shot it, so it's a bit different. It's really not as useful, but especially just build battles. It destroys anything if you just shoot it straight away. It does 150 headshot. You can just phase through anything. I think we've seen that the Deagle is just absolutely insane. I don't know what people's perspectives are because, to be honest, it hasn't really been talked about much. I wish they talked about the Deagle a little more than they did, to be honest. It's really not that talked about how crazy it is. I personally think it's OP, especially in the solo game. I don't know what Fortnite is trying to do because sometimes they make the updates for pro scene, but they've said they want to do it for just the casual player. So it's really hard to see where they go with things. I think the Deagle should just be deleted because if you're versing just a normal player in solo, you can just shoot down builds way too easily. It it really destroys learning curves because if you think about it, for brand new players coming in, let's say it's your first week and you've already learnt to place a ramp and a wall rush. If you get the right angle, you can just shoot the ramp out. You've got a triple layer wall within your first week. Otherwise, you just lose every single game consistently so quickly. So I think that just needs some kind of quality of life change. I like that it's accurate. It's a highly skilled gun. I think we've seen a lot about the sniper not being that skilled. And I think everyone can agree that's pretty true. There's not much you can do with the sniper. And if players are far away, it's just annoying because you have to waste mats to get over there because you know they have a sniper already and the second shot's just going to kill you. Well, guys, I'll chuck the videos down in the description I talked about with the 3 most OP and where we should be landing in Season 7. I still think Polar Peaks, if you're going for the win, just avoid it. Thank you for listening. Have fun, guys.